hello, and of course you watch that and think, oh, I didn't mention Moneyball, I didn't mention Searching for Bobby Fischer, it's like, it goes on and on, but let me just start, because this is, Ripley's an adaptation. You are really great at adaptations. So when you're reading something that you want to make into something, what is it you notice first? And you can use The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith as an example.
I don't have a formula for it. I don't approach everything the same way. I think I read it just like anybody reads a book. I'm reading it just to see if it interests me. And then if it does, I'll read it again, and then I'll start thinking about it, in terms of images and scenes, and just vaguely trying to get a sense of the movement of the thing. This is different because my whole career I've dealt with 2 hours. And so if it's an adaptation of a book that's just as long as Ripley, it's still, I have to condense it down to 2 hours, which is fine. It's what I know. This, to me, was different. This was something I had to learn how to do.
So, was it because you got to indulge, but also, take it longer, but also decide what to add, change?
Yeah, I don't think I was conscious of it in like that, but I did feel that there were scenes that, certainly there were scenes that you could not do the way I wanted to do them in a film, because they would take half of the film for 2 scenes, and so I didn't want to explore that, and again, it's not just to make it longer for the sake of making it longer, it's more that I felt I could understand the character better if I had more time to see the details of his behavior.
Yeah, when I heard that there was going to be a series called Ripley, my first thought was, 8 hours, it's going to be all 5 books maybe, but then I heard it was just the first book, and I thought, really, how's that going to work? And then I watched it, and it reminded me of what it was like to read that book 30 years ago when I first read it. You are in a time and space moment with a man learning his inner sociopath.
Yeah, normally if you're doing a film, and I think they actually did do this in the film, you get to know him in 1 scene. I think he's in New York in 1, maybe 2 scenes. It's the first 50 pages of the book, is his life in New York, and I just felt I think that's important. I think it's important to see what he does before he becomes something else. So that was one of the benefits of being able to do something like this in this kind of format.
Can you talk about when you first read the book and what you thought?
This book? I read it like 30 years ago, probably, and I liked it. I liked it as a book. No one was asking me to do it, so I liked it as a book. When this came along to do it as a series, I thought, I should look at it again, because that might be an interesting way to go. So then now when I'm reading it this second time, I'm trying to plot it out.
Why do you think, this is now the 3rd adaptation of this book, why do you think we're so interested in Tom Ripley as a character?
I don't know. I don't really ask myself that question. I just if I'm interested, I figure other people are going to be interested, and obviously people are interested in con men kind of in general. I think, I don't know why. Maybe because we feel like like a horror movie. At least it didn't happen to us. There might be some kind of relief there, and also because of the process of being a con man, assuming somebody's identity, those kinds of things that he does in the story. They're complicated, and he has to be pretty smart to do them. So I think, following somebody who's bright and interesting, makes him a good character. And he has a lot of the same traits we have. I think he just obviously takes it a little bit too far.
But at the same time, we kind of, like with every movie or TV show where the person who does the bad thing is the lead, we also have this feeling of wanting to get away with it.
That's Patricia Highsmith. I to this day I don't know how she does it, because I followed her, her guide, and assume that that would happen for us as well. But I don't really know how she does it. I mean, the fact that she can have somebody do so many terrible things, and an important element of that, of her stories, is that yes, you do want him to get away with it. Why is that? I don't know. But it's like some kind of magic that she does.
So how did it come together as a series, and in terms of you getting to the point where you're not just writing it, but you're producing and directing it?
How does it come about?
I mean, was it always going to be you directing it? Did you make the decision after you started writing it?
I always put into the contract that I have the option to do it, and the reason I say that is because I have been involved in certain things where the writing takes so long that by the time I get to the end of it, I feel like I don't have anything left for it. And so I did that in this case too. When I was done writing it, which took quite a while, it's like a 500-page script. So it took like a year and a half. I felt that I was the only person to do it. So I mean, I knew it so well. I knew the details of it so well. The idea of doing this, spending so much time in Italy was very exciting for me, to learn about, so many things with the Italian culture and with Caravaggio, and I love Italy to begin with, so that was another big plus.
Yeah, this sounds like one of those projects where you don't want to find the locations too quickly when you're scouting, right?
Yeah, we want to drag it out. But we did, speaking of locations, we went, David Gropin and I, the production designer, went at the end of 2019, so like November, December, and found some of the main locations. We found Atrani, we found the apartment building, so we found some great stuff. And then COVID hit. So everything came to a grinding halt for us and everybody else in the world for about a year. And then the sort of positive part about that for us was that it gave us time to really think about what we wanted to see in terms of the locations, to go through the photographs, to see what we had, to see what we were missing, and to do research in the period. So we spent that year actually working, part of that year actually working before we went back. So when we did go back in 2021, at the beginning of 2021, we had a pretty clear idea of what we needed to find.
Yeah, you and David had worked before on Searching for Bobby Fischer, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about him as a production designer?
Yeah, he's great. David is, that was one of our early films, both of us. He had done a couple of films. That was the first film I directed. We were both the same age as the father in that story. We had kids that were the same age as the Max, the kid in the story. And, so it was really quite personal to us in terms of the story and the way it should look and feel. And it was a very important film for both of us. And then I tried to get him to work on other films, but he was always busy. And we did one other film called Civil Action. You saw some stuff here. And then this is just the third one. And he's tireless. He's got great taste. He can build sets. Basically, every shot that you see in Ripley has something done to it from a production design standpoint. There's maybe a shot at the beach we didn't do too much to, but almost everything has something going on in terms of something that's being changed by the art department.
I mean, yeah, of course I would like to think, yes, when he hears he's going to go to Italy and design, of course he's going to take that job.
It's actually the second job. He did a job just before this one in Italy, which actually was a great thing. He did Catch 22, which was also shot in Italy. And so he knew the crew. He knew who he wanted. He knew the art department people. And so it actually made it quite a lot easier for me that he'd been through it already.
Well, you mentioned New York being so important. I mean, that SRO in the first episode is just one of the great New York sets I think I've ever seen. That apartment is just so vividly dingy and lonely.
Yeah. And that's a result of that period that I was talking about during COVID, when we had a chance to really go through and do a lot of research on period research on places like that and come up with hundreds of photographs, and then try to figure out exactly which parts of those photographs he was going to use in order to base his set on. It is a major set. It's the bedroom, the hallway, the bathroom, the clerk's office downstairs. It's quite a big set.
But then also, this is a great series if you love stairs. It is one of the great staircase shows of all time. Can you talk about just what you were thinking about when you were finding all those, looking for those? Did that happen naturally?
Yeah, it did. It's. I mean, it's in the script now, but I had done so many revisions kind of during that year, COVID year. But one of the main location that we felt we had to find right at the beginning was what became a trolley. Ridiculous. And that place, it's not untouched by time, but it's certainly not as fancy as its neighbors, like Amalfi and Positano and Capri, those places. And it was just what we were looking for. And it happened to have these stairs. A lot of these towns do have these stairs because they're built in the valleys, the valleys of the mountains on the Amalfi Coast. And I was just kind of spellbound by them. I mean, I thought these are great. I know how to shoot these. I know what scenes to put these in. And then it didn't really become a motif for the whole show until we discovered, like, everywhere we went there were stairs. So if we're gonna use this, this Boulevard Hotel exterior, we started out by looking at the top where the entrance is, and then somehow we ended up at the bottom of these stairs, and there they were again. They're everywhere. I mean, in Italy, there's stairs everywhere.
And then you even put like a corner at the bottom of a beautiful staircase.
Yeah, I mean, once you get the idea, the motif, you start looking for it. You don't ignore it. You embrace it.
Okay, so we jumped into production design, but let's go back to just casting this. I think Andrew Scott's one of the great actors working right now. All of Us Strangers. He's just phenomenal, and his performance in this. It's like watching like an AI learning model trying to figure out what a human being acts like. It's like that's what his face is.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that he does so well, one of the things he does so well, is that in this story he's on his own a lot. There's nobody to play opposite. There's nobody to react to. And for the first 6 episodes, I think he's in every scene. So, somebody who's that watchable and who can kind of command the screen and show us what he's thinking without being obvious about it is a quality that he has, and that was super important in this story.
So, what kind of conversations would you have?
Not that much. I mean, he was he loved the scripts, and we would talk about things over the course of the day that we were shooting, but we didn't sit down and have long conversations about the character to begin with. We both felt that it was on the page, and we could figure it out as we went along.
At a certain point, is he like, really, I have to walk again? Is he like, really, just more walking? I mean,
I guess he does walk a lot. Yeah. Again, it's something that you do there. You can't avoid it. And I tried to, show the things as they were.
And then what I love about Dakota Fanning as Marge is that the edge that she just kind of always gives. You talk about her casting?
She's a great actress, and that character, I think, is really interesting. I mean, the character is interesting in the book. The character in the movie is interesting. It's different, but it's interesting. The take on it, and her take on it. Again, the script is a guide, but the idea is not that easy to play. Which is, I think, being an American. From a different class than Dickie is, can see through Ripley right away. And to do that and to still make the character interesting, and not just one note, I think takes a good actor. And then the sort of change that she makes over the course of the story, where she starts to see some of the perks of of her disappeared boyfriend, and the relationship that they have later on is, I think, really interesting. I mean, I had said, to myself as I'm writing, if it wasn't for Dickie, they'd probably really like each other. But the problem is they're both in love with the same guy.
And you get a sense at near the end that they could possibly stay friends, but if he needs to, he has to grab an ashtray.
Yeah.
Johnny Flynn as Dickie Greenleaf.
Johnny did an audition, and one of the things that made the audition process kind of difficult for us was the movie. So many people had seen the movie. Maybe if they hadn't seen it, they watched it before they did the audition. So a lot of the auditions were, I would say, imitations of Jude Law and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that's not what I was looking for. And so in the case of Johnny and Elliot Sumner, they did something completely different, and they did it, I think, because they weren't affected by the movie. I don't think they'd seen them, and so they were doing their interpretation of the character based on the pages of the script that I sent them. And in both cases, I loved about Johnny that he played the character very easygoing, that kind of easygoing style that people with money have. Doesn't seem to have a care in the world. Is not a bad guy. Is not obnoxious. He's a little bit clueless, actually, and naive. And he was one of maybe the only actor who did that in the audition.
Everybody else was kind of playing the
yeah. I mean, listen, Jude was great in it. It's a great performance in it. But and it wasn't that I was trying to do something different. I was trying to do something that felt more like the book.
Which we might as well get into the thing that everybody likes to talk about, which is, and rightly so, is the black and white, which is just, I mean, it is like one of the most beautiful black and white shows. I'm going to call it still an 8-hour film I've ever seen. And with Robert Elswit behind the camera, who won an Oscar for There Will Be Blood, it's just unreal how great it is. Can you talk about the decision to make something in black and white?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was that big of a decision. I felt that as I was reading it, as I was writing it, I saw it that way. And I think I was probably affected by movies of the time. There were a lot of movies still being made in black and white back in the mid-50s and 1960. And I didn't think it would be an issue at all. I just thought it's not like nobody does it. I mean, every once in a while somebody will do it. So it wasn't a big decision on my part. It allowed us to capture photographically what I had imagined the place to look like, the places in Italy to look like. And I did not see it. I didn't see the story as taking place in the summertime with bright blue skies and colorful bathing costumes. I saw it as, I think, as Patricia wrote it, which was wintertime, no tourists, a rather sinister story, in a dangerous place. And so, for all those reasons, black and white made sense to me.
Did you have any classic black and white movies in mind when you were seeing the images for this?
Not really. Robert and I didn't do that. He'd made another movie in black and white, Good Night and Good Luck, right? But no, we didn't really talk about that. The style of the film happens as you're doing it. Unless you're consciously trying to copy another movie, the way to do it is to discover it as you're doing it.
So when it comes to, because the black and white is not all, every film that's in black and white is different, a different kind of black and white. So what kind of black and white were you thinking about for this?
I happen to like super high contrast, blacks and whites and less gray. So that I just felt that as we were shooting, that's what I like to look at. we would send our dailies, and Robert would time our dailies that way. So everything that I saw, and it was important to me because I'm going to have to live with it in the editing room for years, and I do want it to look good as I'm working on it. So we took some time to do that, and that set the look of it.
I talked to Robert Ellsworth recently for something I was writing, and he also mentioned this thing about the way you wanted to shoot, where the walls were always parallel to the camera.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, what he means by that is that if there's if you're doing a shot and it's here and your camera's tipped up and you've got a wide angle lens on, the walls are going to start doing that. And to me, that doesn't look right. It just doesn't look right. So if you're going to do it, raise the camera up to the middle of the frame, and then your walls will be straight.
Is it like it would be too melodramatic if you had kind of tilted?
I think it's just an aesthetic thing. It's just like an aesthetic thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. The light and dark, the contrast is great. I mean, did you try to shoot in overcast days only, or?
We tried. Robert tells a story about how despondent I was. I don't remember this, but when we were shooting at the beach in episode 1, when Tom meets Dickie and Marge on the beach, it was a sunny day. And later on in the show, you see Marge having a conversation with the boatman, and it's not a bright sunny day. And of the two, I prefer the overcast look. It fit into the style that I wanted this period of the year to look like. And he pointed out that when we had the camera way up high shooting down on Dickie and Marge on the beach, it's the first shot of them that you see. When Tom walked by, the sun threw a shadow across them. So he said that wouldn't have happened with an overcast sky. So sometimes it works.
You allowed the sun to.
Well, it was so great. It was this shadow. You don't want to see him; just his shadow goes across them. It was fabulous.
But also, I feel like it also kind of plays into the Caravaggio part of the story. Can you talk about, because I don't think Caravaggio is mentioned in the book. Yeah, so talk about adding him as a kind of a figure.
Caravaggio, when I first went to Italy, and I think it was 1980, just to visit, it was my first time in Europe. I was in a museum, and I was alone in the museum, and I was looking at a painting for a long time, and the guard said, "La luce sempre la luce," and it's like some of the first words that I learned in Italian. The light, always the light. And he was referring to the way the painting was, the light and shadow in the painting. And it wasn't a Caravaggio, but it was a student of Caravaggio, so it was the same style. So I put that into the script just because I liked it. And then this idea that he would start looking for them in every town that he went to, that's something that I did too. So I put that in the script. And then gradually it started to become sort of, not just a motif, but part of the story. And I wondered, can I really get away with actually showing Caravaggio at some point? And by the time I got to episode 8, I thought I could.
Yeah, I mean, was the stuff in the final episode where you actually, depict Caravaggio's life briefly in that kind of 17th century Italy, was that in the script too?
Oh yeah, that was in the script.
Yeah, I mean, you write a very detailed script, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Do you allow for happy accidents, besides the sun?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I don't do is rewrite the night before. I don't think that my judgment, the night before I'm going to shoot something, is as good as it was when I had all the time in the world to figure out what to do. So I like having the script as, the Bible, but if something happens that's an accident, I embrace it immediately. Or if somebody has, wants to try something different, of course I'm happy to do it. I do make sure that I have what I wrote also, just in case, because I know, or I think I know that works, at least at one time.
I guess I should ask, what does Steven Zaillian, the director, think of Steven Zaillian, the writer? What does Steven Zaillian, the director, think of Steven Zaillian, the writer? And maybe vice versa.
Well, I learned a long time ago when I started writing. You know, if a scene is bad, it's going to be even worse when you shoot it. So try to make it as good as it possibly can be on the page. There are some things that you think, oh well, the director will make it better, so I don't have to worry about it. It never works. Whether it's me or somebody else, it doesn't get any better. It really can only get worse. It's not going to get saved when you shoot it. You have to make so many compromises when you're shooting that to have a solid script to begin with is essential. I mean, I would never direct something that I wrote that I wasn't pretty confident of the writing.
That's why then, does it go the other way too? Like when you're writing and you know you're going to direct, are you thinking about how you're going to direct it, or are you just only concerned with the writing?
I actually think about how I'm going to direct it, even if I'm not going to direct it, and I only say that in this way, that when I'm writing, I see it. I don't know if there's other writers who can write things and not visualize them, but I can't do that. So I'm already seeing it. It may not be the best way to do it, but I have already seen it by the time I've written it. So I've kind of directed it. And then obviously everything changes when you actually do direct it, because the sets are different, the locations are different, the blocking is different, everything changes, but you know, at one point I did see it.
I mean, you have another instance, I mean, because you're in these beautiful locations in Italy, of getting to a place and going, yeah, we need to do it this way, not how I thought.
Yeah. Sometimes the stairs. The stairs. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, I mean, we would, it's one thing to talk about a set and how to design a set. And by the way, with David, you know, he was very much aware that the action had to take place in the set, meaning the door has to be there because it's the way he's got to walk from there to the kitchen. Steve knows that that's what he wants to do. So when you're building a set, you can do that. When you're not building a set, you have to kind of improvise. You know, the room isn't going to lay out the way you want it to, and so a lot would be decided on the day in that regard.
I'm kind of wondering, there's so much in this series that's things that just don't exist anymore. The way people write letters, and the way things are done with letters, and the way you kind of shoot that, stamps, mailing, reading out things, the time that it takes for a letter to get there, and what can happen in between. Did that feel like you were entering like another world at this point with the way technology has changed?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started this project, there was some talk about updating it, and I said it's ludicrous. I mean, it can't be done. This story will not work in cell phones. The thing we talked about with the stamps and the phone calls and how long mail takes, I remember that because I actually was there when it happened. It was still like that. So I remember it very well. And I'm always interested in the process, the way things work, whether it's forgery or a police investigation, or all the things that he does. I like to examine it pretty closely.
Does it seem like Tom Ripley does not finds out who he is by becoming someone else? I mean, is that basically kind of what the story is?
Maybe. I mean, I never really wrote it down as like a theme, but I think you could probably say that. Yeah. There's this idea that he's Tom Ripley. He goes to Italy. He assumes this other identity, and then at a certain point, he realizes it's not so good to be that person anymore. He can't continue to be that. That person's wanted for murder, so he can't be that person. So he's got, and I think in the script I said, it was rather depressing that he was going to have to go back to being Tom in Venice, but then at a certain point, he kind of became a combination of the two that was quite satisfying to him, just in terms of inside.
Yeah, I mean, the real-time aspect of certain sequences in this is great. The fact that you get to show us, like Hitchcock did with Torn Curtain, like how difficult it is to kill somebody and you know, get away with that. Can you talk about, like, you have two very, very long murder and disposal sequences?
These were always in the script. I did episode 3, episode 5. They were things that I, really wanted to do. I mean, I really wanted to do total visual storytelling, no dialogue, no score. 25 minutes. Each one of them is about 25 minutes. And the challenge seems so simple, but it's actually really hard to get rid of a body. Easier to kill somebody than to get rid of the body, even if you're in a boat. And the ledge is just 3 feet up from where that person lies. It's still hard. And Patricia Highsmith spent some time describing that process, and I sort of went a little further than that, but with that same thing in mind, that we don't get a chance to see that sort of thing very often because it does take time. The whole point is that it takes time. And in the case in episode 5 with the getting rid of Freddie, I just love the movement in that sequence, and that again, it's no score, great sound work, great shots that we got, and it was a challenge that I was really looking forward to.
I've never been so tensed up by, like, watching blood streak and me going like, do you get the blood? It's just get the.
Cat paws.
Well, this brings us to the investigation, and really one of the casting finds is Maurizio Lombardi as the inspector, who is just perfect. Can you talk about him?
Yeah, Maurizio came in for an audition. There was not any. There was only one Italian actor that I knew well enough to, knew their work well enough to offer the part to, without an audition, and he was busy or didn't want to do it, so I did auditions, and a lot of great Italian actors came in and did them, and Maurizio was one of them, and he was sort of in the top 5, and then he wasn't in the top 5. He was like 6th. He wasn't in the top 5, and my wife said, I don't know, I think you should go back and look at this guy again. Really? Yeah, I think you should look at it. And I looked at him again, and I don't know, I saw him with new eyes. It was like, he's perfect. And what I love about him is, there's a lot of things I love about him, but he has this kind of vanity, which I thought was super important for the character, and fun. That I never thought of him as a great detective. People tell me, oh, he's such a great detective. It's like, I don't know, I saw him as an okay detective, but that his vanity is the thing that's going to get in his way. And you had mentioned when we were talking backstage about that shot where he's doing a press conference, and then makes the point of posing for the cameras at the end of the press conference. It tells you a lot about his character. And just the way he sits and he lights his cigarettes. And when I met Maurizio, I cast him from this tape, and when I was in Italy scouting, I met him. And the first thing he said to me, we sat down and he said, so, you think I should hold my cigarette like this or like this? And I swear to God, I thought, oh God, I am in such trouble. If this is what he's worried about, I'm in big trouble. And then I realized that actually that stuff is such a part of his character that he was right to care about.
You mean the fact that he was so the detail level, isn't that like what you were looking for?
Yeah, I did, but I thought we were going to talk about the character, not the way he held the cigarette.
I know I mentioned Andrew Scott earlier, but I think we all know the real star of the show is the cat Lucio. Who is, seriously, it's like just one of the great, it's like since Messi and Anatomy of a Fall last year, this is the animal performance of the year.
Yeah, and not our first cat. I had to fire the first cat.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. but this cat was fantastic, and a lot of the credit goes to the cat, but also a lot of the credit goes to our second unit director of photography. His name is Fred Dubrovchich, and he shot the cat. I mean, I did a couple of shots of the cat that involved, when there was an actor involved, but he spent many, many, many hours with the cat, and had the patience, and it was a really great Maine Coon cat, very chill, great cat.
Does the cat look at Tom Ripley and recognize game, or is the cat like what are you?
Well,
That's our nature's assassins.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was that the only witnesses to his crime would be animals or things, like pictures on the wall, things that can't testify. And the cat was this. I just thought, I mean, if we can pull this off with the cat, I think it could be great. That the cat is a witness to everything that he does.
Yeah, I mean, you say things. I mean, there are all sorts of great inserts of gargoyles and things. Was that just kind of fun to go around in these places and to find?
Yeah. It was the same thing that happened with the stairs. That once this idea came up, that these, if the gargoyle is there, and it was there, we didn't put it there. If the gargoyle is there, I'm going to shoot it. Why not? It's another thing that's sort of staring at Tom as he's going about his crimes.
I think the props in this are incredible. I think they get thrown like hero shots. I mean, they're loving shots of a typewriter, a pen, an ashtray. I mean, that was really must have been fun to do.
Yes, I love props. And I felt the props in this were important because they actually had to say something too. And it wasn't just that they had to say wealth, which they did. They had to be cool. I mean, they had to be something that would be appealing. And I've always felt that Tom is actually not that interested in wealth. He's more interested in the beauty of things, and some of these expensive things have beauty to them in terms of their design. So I was pretty specific about what we were looking for. We were looking for an Hermes baby typewriter in mint green. We wanted that typewriter. We wanted the envelope pads. We wanted not just any Rolex, but a Rolex Precision. It had to be like this gorgeous thing. And Dave Gulick and Antonio and Sebastiano, our prop guys, embraced this. And of course, the ashtray. The ashtray is an ashtray that I happen to own. And when I was writing, she wrote that it was an ashtray in the book, Patricia. It was an ashtray, the murder weapon. And when I was doing the scripts, the ashtray was within view of where I was writing. And it turned out, and I don't even know that I knew it at the time, it was a Murano glass ashtray, so it was made in Italy.
And so you had an Italian ashtray at home that you could see while you were writing.
Yeah.
And it became the ashtray.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Is it the same ashtray, or is it?
No, it's not. That one's still at my house. The other one, I think, is next door. The one that we used, I think, is next door. The thing. We can go look at it.
Oh, okay. And you'll look at to see it at the reception. That's great. Did it become like the wrap gift?
No, they're actually quite rare. And my wife, who loves these ashtrays, is quite concerned that there aren't going to be any more now. That people are going to like these ashtrays, That's it. These ashtrays are. But they're all from the 60s, 1950s, 1960s, made in Murano in Venice, and they're called sommerso, which means the color is like submerged in the glass, which also became the name of one of the episodes.
What was the most challenging scene to do, and why?
I'm tempted to say the boat, because, it seems like an obvious one. I think that the challenge is, it sounds crazy, but every day is a challenge. I mean, and you don't really know, I don't really know how the day is going to go. Around 1 o'clock, I know how the day is going to go. But if I did have to think of the episode 5 sequence with Freddie, we shot it the first week, which, looking back on it, was insane. I mean, we had not worked together. We had a crew of 250 people, and we were trying to do like what was one of the most complex scenes on the first week. Looking back on it, it does seem crazy, but we did it, and I think I went 2 days over schedule in the first week because of it. But we did it. It was hard, but it was really satisfying because I was able to get the shots that I wanted.
Like it ends up being the thing that, to go through that kind of gives you the, like you realize, okay, I can do this now.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember people saying, not another shot of the Ferragamos. Really, Steve? Another shot of the Ferragamos? I said, yeah, they're an important thing.
All those inserts are really important.
They are.
They really are. They genuinely are. I do like to ask this of people who create, and assuming you learn something new about what you do every time you work on a project, what did working on Ripley kind of tell you about yourself and what you do for a living?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that every time I do it, whether it's writing a script or directing something, I do feel like I have to relearn it. I'll learn a lesson, maybe a couple of lessons, but there's 100 more that you sort of have to know too, where you have to learn. So I'll make mistakes. You know, I won't make the same mistake twice, but I'll make some other mistake, and I'll say, the next time I won't do that. So, I mean, I think that when I did The Night Of, which was also quite challenging because it was like 150 days of shooting, you know, I said, I can't, the next one I am going to be really fast and not precious and just get on with it. And so I did, you know, that was my goal, was to do that on this one. This one shot for 170 days, so I actually went 20 days longer. And I just can't not do it. I accept that about myself, that I do want every shot, you know, to be the best it can, and the acting and the characters to be the best I can.
So now that this is done, and there are 4 other Ripley books, would you return to this character?
Yes, I would return to the character. Whether I would return in the same way, I don't know. I mean, this was 5 years of my life, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I would have to take some kind of a break before I went into another 5 years on something. But is the material there? Yes, it is.
I mean, because John Malkovich, that seemed like a tease that there was more to come.
There is, yeah. That character was not in the first book, but you know, having read all the other 4 books, I think he's in all of them, and he's a great character. So I really did want somebody who was great. And who would be willing to do it in subsequent seasons if we did that. And John said, yeah.
And what are you thinking about doing next?
Nothing right now.
Just talk about Ripley. Well, I want to say thank you for coming, Stephen, and talking to us, all the talented Mr.